does it mean to be successful? I'd like everybody to just take a moment, let's close our eyes for a moment here, and picture what it means to be successful. What do you see? Now, if you open them, I can probably guess what it is that you pictured. Fast car, fancy vacation home, a boat, happiness. A lot of this is rooted in material possessions, not for all of us, but for many of us here. And a lot of that has to do with the way that the world depicts how someone is successful. It creates a recipe that we think we're supposed to follow, or at least that I do. And in America, we have burned this into our minds, and it doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, mind you. This is very, very unique to America. And we don't subscribe to balance in cases like this. If you look at someone that's extremely financially wealthy, let's look at Elon Musk as an example here. His relationship life is covered in the news at very, very, very high levels, and it's kind of a mess. Yet he has financial success that just about all of us will probably never have in our life. And so you can tell that there is more to the story than just financial success. And it's obvious, right? We know that the way that you interact with people, your relationships, that personal fulfillment that we're after is complicated. However, we are taught, climb the ladder, be a CEO, become rich, become famous, influence as many people as you can, and be this contrasting image of success that looks like a lot of the pictures that you see on this slide here. Well, today I want to challenge that definition. I think the ultimate test of true happiness is when you can look back at any period of time that you've had in your life and say, I'm pretty happy with how I was. I'm pretty happy with what I have. And to me, it's a recipe that the world doesn't want you to have. And I think that's dangerous, and I hate that word. Success is my least favorite word in the English language. And it's dangerous because it's comparative. My success means nothing to any of you guys in here, nor should it. And it's not for you to define how I define success either, nor me you. Are you not successful if you don't climb the highest mountains, if you don't become a CEO? I don't think it's a newsflash that all of us are not going to be CEOs or rich and famous, and that's okay. But we're not taught that it's okay. The education system in the United States has geared us towards go get a college degree. You're not going to be successful if you don't have a college degree. And we have watched that change over the last 5 to 10 years, right? The reinvigoration of trades, of manufacturing. We've heard a lot about that today. But in the grand scheme of things, how could a teacher be successful, right? You're not going to make millions and millions of dollars for the most part, but you're going to touch a lot of lives, and that value system is going to be different for everybody. And that's not to say that being rich and famous is a bad thing. You have opportunities that I always wanted as a child. But if you believe that you can find true happiness and contentment in someone else's definition of success, I don't think it's a newsflash. You're not going to find it. And the other problem with success is that you get trapped in the vicious cycle. And people confuse success with achievement. Achievement is something that I can't take away from you. You have accomplished something. It's written down in a record book. It is written down. It is logged somewhere. It is an accomplishment, right? And within that cycle, we chase the dopamine hit of achievement. Imagine you're a marathon runner. Marathons are very long. They take many, many hours. I don't think I could run one. You train every day. You go run a race. Man, you run your best time ever. I wanted to break 4 hours and I did it. That is an accomplishment and that is achievement. You have now moved to the validation stage of the vicious cycle. But with validation comes expectation, and expectation breeds anxiety. And that anxiety is the problem. This is the root of so many mental health issues in the United States because we think that we are expected to always be successful. And it's not. We're not supposed to be successful. We're humans. We are broken by nature. And that cycle, when you get stuck in the validation and the expectation stage, it leads to fear. What if I run another race and I don't do as good? Am I good? Am I a good runner? If I shoot 3 under par in a golf tournament, most people in the world would say, that's amazing. If I shoot 90 the next time, am I a good golfer still? Which person in that story am I? I don't know. It's both. If you make the NBA, you've spent your whole life playing basketball for the most part. You go through high school, you go through college, you get a scholarship, you practice every day. How many free throws and jump shots is an NBA player going to take in their life? A ton. Well, what if you make it to the NBA and you ride the bench? Maybe you've got a $1 million contract, Maybe you get to spend time around LeBron James. You think that person's happy? You think that's success? I don't know. We might see them on TV, they might have cool fashion, they might have really good brand awareness and sponsorships, but I bet that person that dedicated their entire life to playing the game of basketball is not doing what they want to be doing there. And that's failure. That is internal failure because I had an expectation that I was going to succeed a certain way, and this person didn't turn out to be Michael Jordan. For some of us, I like to think of myself in this, is you can turn that into motivation, but you'll never get out of this loop. And I find myself there often, and that's where I am now in my life. And it's called the chase. You are chasing getting back out of the failure loop so hard that you forget why you got into this process in the first place. Why did I start running? Why do I play basketball? And I'm still learning what this word success means to me today. I'm not here to tell you that I figured it out because I've actually figured out that I don't know what it means. And as I became more aware of what I truly value and the person that I thought that I wanted to be, I watched my life become a little bit better. It's not perfect, but it's a little bit better because I'm grounded. I know where I want to be. I just don't know how to get there. But if you want to understand my definition, you have to understand a little bit about me. A lot of the folks in this room and probably watching upstairs here know me as the mad scientist. And I think I have a lot more to my story than that. And I grew up in Springfield. I've never met my dad. I'm an only child. My mom is handicapped. She hasn't ever held a full-time job in her life. I don't think I was ever hugged as a kid. I have no material relationship with most of my family because of how isolated we were out there. We didn't have much money. My house was almost 700 square feet, maybe 7-foot tall ceilings, and I grew up around a lot of friends that had stuff that I was just so jealous of. I couldn't go on vacation. I didn't have the nice basketball shoes when I played. I didn't have a choice in the things that I had. That's all we had. And I made it a point to burn that into my soul, that I would not let my family and my adulthood be lived that way. When you compound that, I had a horrible ADHD, and it was really hard. I was the guinea pig for just about every flavor of ADHD drug that they had. I used to get injections and pills. I mean, that was a pharmaceutical nightmare. It was awful. And I didn't really fit in anywhere. And because of how I grew up, I developed this crystal clear image. And you can use it as grit, right? It's motivating. I use that to try to inspire the way that I work every day and who I want to be. I needed to have a high-paying job. I needed to have something that other people couldn't do. I needed to be important. And that's not what I want right now, but it's the life that I built. And it's such a conundrum. You can't get out of that vicious cycle because I put so much work into getting to where I am today. And so what do? Well, I had to look inward. But through my 20s, I didn't know this. I was ready to tackle the world. I was famously quoted as wanting to build an empire out here, right? And I still do, I think. But success meant doing whatever it took. And I got some amazing opportunities. I was able to keynote some conferences with people that I read about in books. I saw parts of the world that were part of my history book, my geography classes. Opened up EMA out here. Became a dad. But I hadn't climbed to the top of the mountain. I found golf, much to the chagrin of my wife. She's not happy about that. But I joined my current company out here with an opportunity to do some really amazing stuff, and I don't regret a second of anything that we've been able to do professionally out here. I met awesome people, many of the folks in this room. But life changes. And middle of last year, I took on a major work assignment. And 20-year-old, 25-year-old, even 30-year-old Justin was like, dude, this is where you need to be. This is everything I want to do. I have some of the most well-known, large, and famous companies dependent on the work that I do. And that feels pretty good, right? Especially for an engineer. I'm not making PowerPoints. I'm telling you how you're going to design fighter jets because that's how I think it should be done. And people say, we trust you. That led to me traveling 3 out of every 5 weeks for over a year. And I now have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old at home, and that's tough. And I remember the exact point when I hit that inflection point. I was sitting at an Embassy Suites in St. Charles, Missouri. I just gotten off the phone with my wife, saying goodnight to the kids, pretty typical night. And I heard my oldest, my son Lucas, say, I really wish Dad was home. And just that right there, that struck a chord. And I'm like, the more investment I make into my professional career, the less happy I'm getting. What is this about? I built my entire persona, my image about who I wanted to be. And then I took a step back. I can't have dinner with my family every night. I miss playing golf on the weekends and being able to go to the gym at a schedule that works for me. These simple little nuggets of life that matter very much to me. And I'm achieving this professional success in a way that I don't want. I don't like this. This isn't what I want to be doing, but at the same time it is. And that's the dichotomy of the word success, and it's why it's so dangerous. It's the push and pull, and you can't control it. And so I started to redefine success for me. I realized right then and there, I can't press a button and change my career, and I don't want to. I love what I do. But I need to make the most out of what I have. And how do you do that? If you chop life up into 5 buckets, you can really understand your own recipe for success. And that's kind of what I want to leave you guys with and try to share with you today. Every person has a different weighting system, and I promise you, don't quote me on it, but I promise you that nobody in this room has the same recipe for success. Think of it if you're playing a video game. For those that grew up in the gaming community, you have attribute points, and you can place them in any capacity across these 5 pillars. You're going to make a different player every time that you do this. And so you have professional. That is your career or day-to-day job, and that's going to be different for me and for all of you. What you do, why you do it. Somebody that is motivated to teach people is going to have a very different outlook than I'm going to, because I like to solve problems. There's the financial aspect. Look, money is the root of all evil, but we all need it. It's just the way that we transact. It's the currency that we use to buy goods and services. We're never going to get away from that. But what you need cannot be defined by society. It is just you. Some people live in yurts and they have the happiest lives with no stress, and some people live in high-rise condominiums in Manhattan and they have no parking and their lives are miserable. And there's a way to work through that somehow. There's the physical part. What do you do with your body? What do you spend your time doing? And that can be sports, that can be working out, that can be dieting, changing your image, how you feel about your body. That's going to be different for everybody. You'll look at most professional athletes, they do not look the same as they did during their playing career after they're retired, because their priorities change. They don't need their bodies the way that they used to. And the last 2 are the ones that I'm learning to navigate better, and I'm trying to shift my priorities into, and that's experiential and relationship. And experiential is the stuff you see. These are the memories, the Christmas stories, the things you talk about at Thanksgiving. And the relationship are the people that you spend your time with. And for me, that's my family. And when you're stuck and you can't control things, you get that frustration, you get that vicious cycle feeling of failure. You can't invest time the way you want. And that was the realization, is that when your value system isn't aligned with how you spend your time, you cannot be happy. You can't. It's not possible. And so I titled this talk, Establishing Your Roots, because for me, I'm not there, but I understand it right now. And if you redefine your success, and this is going to happen at some interval that I can't tell you. You can do it once a month, once a week, once a year. There are transitions in life that are obvious. Having a kid versus not having a kid, probably should readjust at that point. Some people retire, right? When you retire from your career, you probably don't care so much about your professional work life anymore. You could look at Doug. Doug's still definitely retired, but he very much cares about his professional life. And that's just by virtue how some of us are wired. And when you look at these pillars and you learn how to shift and move between them with agility there, you can really find a lot of different ways to look at life without needing to upend everything that you've built. And the worst thing that can happen in all of this is if you get that recipe wrong, because what you'll do, and this is what a lot of folks that I've looked up to as mentors, people that have achieved success that I can't even fathom, they have regret. A good friend dropped his daughter off at college this year, and he drove her there, trying to spend some good father-daughter time with her. And he said to me, I've never felt more guilty in my entire life, because his baby girl is going to college, and all he could think about is the time he didn't spend with her. And that's terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying to know that that's a possibility, even though he has achieved every checkbox and every piece of success that society says you should. And the problem is that finance and money isn't the real currency, it's time. How we spend our time across the pillars that define our success is really the name of the game. The concept of achievement is fleeting. You can only achieve something for a very short period of time. It's transient. It doesn't last forever. That hit of dopamine that you crave, the validation, it doesn't last. It doesn't last forever. But the path that you take to have that achievement, that feeling, when your time being spent aligns with what's important to you, that can be lasting. I knew that as an only child, having never met my dad, that my kids were going to know me. And I try to make it a point every day to maximize the quality of the time that I spend with them. I'm always wrestling them, jumping on the trampoline. We have our little games, and it's fun to just laugh a little bit and look and just tune the world out, leave the phone inside. And I'm happy because, yes, I love my children and I love that part of my day, but my priorities at that moment in time are very much on the relationship side there. And that little victory, I'm still gonna have to travel. I'm leaving next week for a conference, but while I'm home, I'm getting the most out of it there. And that little smile that creeps across your face when you think about stuff like this, I can see it from many of you in the audience understanding what I'm saying here, that is the blend of your value system aligning with how you spend your time. So I want to leave you with a couple parting actions here. Please hug your loved ones. You have no idea how important that is to how they grow up and who they're going to become. You can't focus on achievements because that concept is fleeting. It will never last. People will never remember the golf score you shot or the time you spent in the race. They're going to remember the person that you were while that was going on. That will persist far, far longer than anything that you do. So I encourage you to try to figure out what your recipe is and make the best of it there, because even dishes that are not perfect can still taste good. Thank you.